After that day in the hospital, life didn't suddenly turn into a fairy tale. Forgiveness is not magic. It doesn't erase the scars of betrayal overnight, but it does open the door to healing. My daughter began visiting me every week. Sometimes she brought her kids. Sometimes she came alone, just to sit quietly beside me, as though silence itself was repairing years of distance. At first, I didn't know how to act. Every time I looked at her, memories of that day at my doorstep came rushing back. The anger, the humiliation, the sound of her voice shouting, "Go away or I'll call the police." Those words cut deeper than any knife. And yet, when I saw her fragile smile in recovery, when I saw her children hugging me, calling me grandpa, my heart softened in ways I never thought possible. One Sunday, she brought a pie she had baked herself. I remember laughing because she had burned the crust. "I'm not Mom," she said, embarrassed. But I took a bite, and it was the sweetest pie I had ever tasted. Not because of the flavor, but because of what it meant. My daughter, who once chose money and pride over me, was now trying to rebuild our bond. Over the years, I had learned something cruel about betrayal. It doesn't just break trust, it poisons your ability to love. For 15 years, I lived like a ghost. I stopped trusting friends, stopped going to family gatherings, even stopped smiling at neighbors. When people asked about my family, I changed the subject. I thought I was protecting myself. But in truth, I was just burying myself alive in loneliness. And yet, here I was at 67, learning that forgiveness was setting me free. Not her me, because when I forgave her, I dropped the heavy chains I've been carrying for decades. I could breathe again. I could smile without forcing it. I could walk into my home and feel warmth instead of emptiness. But let me be honest, this isn't a fairy tale ending. Forgiveness didn't mean I forgot. It didn't mean I trusted blindly again. It meant I chose peace over poison. And that's the lesson I want to share with you, especially if you're in America, Europe, or anywhere in the world where family drama feels like a curse you can't escape. Some of you listening right now might have been betrayed, maybe by a spouse, maybe by a child, maybe by a sibling or a close friend. You gave them everything, and in return, they gave you pain. I know that pain. I've tasted it. I've lived with it. I've cried into my pillow at night because of it. But here's what life taught me. Revenge might make you feel powerful for a moment, but forgiveness makes you free for a lifetime. Think about it. What would have happened if I had stuck to revenge? If I had let my daughter rot in the hospital bed, punished her for every cruel word, every selfish act? I would have won the battle, but I would have lost the war. I would have died a bitter old man, sitting in a house filled with silence, my grave carrying nothing but anger. Instead, by forgiving, I gained back something priceless: family. Now, on weekends, I hear my grandkids running through the garden, their laughter filling the air. My daughter sits by me, not asking for money, not asking for favors, but just being there. And that's more valuable than all the houses and bank accounts in the world. Do I still feel betrayed sometimes? Yes. Do I still remember the humiliation? Absolutely. But every time I look at her, I remind myself, people make mistakes, sometimes terrible ones. But life is too short to waste on endless hatred. So, if you're retired like me, or approaching those years, remember this. Retirement is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a chapter you can write however you want. You can choose bitterness, or you can choose peace. You can choose to sit alone with grudges, or you can choose to forgive and find new meaning in the time you have left. And forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes the best forgiveness is silent, letting go of the anger without letting the person back in your life. But if you have the chance, like I did, to rebuild even a fragile bridge, don't ignore it. One day, you might look back and realize that bridge carried more joy than any bank account ever could. Now, I want to ask you, the one listening to my story, if you were in my shoes, would you have forgiven? Or would you have turned away forever? Would you let your pride decide? Or your heart? Tell me in the comments, because your answer might just help someone else who is facing the same pain. And to those who are young, who think betrayal will never touch you, remember this: family is fragile. Love is fragile. Don't take it for granted. Cherish your parents while you can. Cherish your children while they are small. Because one day, you might wake up at 67, like me, with nothing but regrets and missed calls on your phone. Life gave me a second chance, and I chose forgiveness. And I hope, when your moment comes, you will too. Asterisk. I sat in my chair that night, staring at the silent phone after her husband's call. The word sick echoed in my ears like thunder rolling in a storm. For years, I had carried the weight of betrayal, anger, and loneliness. And now, the very people who cast me aside, who humiliated me, who shouted "go away" or "I'll call the police," were begging for me. I didn't sleep that night. I walked around my empty house, running my fingers along the photo frames. One picture stopped me, a photo of her 5th birthday. She was wearing a pink dress, holding a balloon, smiling so wide as she hugged me. Back then, I was her hero. Now I was her last hope. Morning came. My chest felt heavy as I drove to the hospital. When I entered her room, I froze. There she was, my daughter, lying on the bed, pale and weak. Tubes ran into her arm. The strong, proud, arrogant woman I once saw shouting at me now looked like the same fragile little girl I once carried on my shoulders. Her eyes opened slowly, and when they met mine, she burst into tears. "Dad, I'm sorry. I don't want the house. I don't want the money. I just want you. Please forgive me." I felt my throat tighten. My heart wanted to scream. Do you know what you put me through? Do you know the nights I cried alone? The mornings I woke up to silence instead of your voice. But instead, I reached for her hand. It was cold, trembling, and I whispered, "Daughter, life is too short. I forgive you." She broke down. Her husband turned away, ashamed, his arrogance gone like dust in the wind. For the first time, I saw them not as enemies, but as lost children who made terrible choices. I paid the bills, made sure she got the best treatment. Slowly, she recovered, and something miraculous happened. Her heart softened. Every weekend, she came to visit me, not for money, not for favors, but to sit with me, talk with me, laugh with me. One day, as we sat in the garden, she said, "Dad, I thought money was everything. But when I lost everything, the only thing I wanted was you. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on you." And that day, at 67 years old, I learned the greatest lesson of life. Forgiveness heals faster than revenge. Money, houses, pride, they come and go. But family, even when broken, even when stained with betrayal, can sometimes be stitched back together with love. So if you're listening to me today and you're holding on to anger, ask yourself, is the pain worth more than peace? Is revenge worth more than love? Because sometimes the sweetest revenge is forgiveness. A week later, I woke up with the sun streaming through my curtains, the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen, and the sound of my old clock ticking away. But when I looked at my phone, my hands trembled. 41 missed calls, all from my daughter. My heart pounded. I wanted to pick up, to hear her voice, to know if she was safe. But then a thought hit me like lightning. Where was this urgency when I was calling her? Where was this panic when I was alone at night, waiting for her visits? Suddenly, her silence over the years felt heavier than those 41 calls stacked on top of each other. I didn't answer. Instead, I sat in my chair, staring out the window. The same chair I had bought when she was just 12 years old. The one where I used to read bedtime stories to her. Now it was just me, the chair, and a phone buzzing with guilt on the other side. By evening, she finally sent a text. "Dad, we need to talk. Please. Urgent." Something inside me twisted. Urgent. I chuckled bitterly. Urgent for her, maybe. But for me, it was just another reminder that I had been nothing but an ATM in her life. I didn't reply. That night, as I lay in bed, memories crashed over me. I saw her as a little girl, holding my hand, looking up at me with innocent eyes, saying, "Daddy, promise you'll never leave me." My chest ached, but life had flipped, and here she was, the same daughter, threatening to call the police on me. That night, I cried silently into my pillow. At 67 years old, tears don't come easy, but when they do, they cut deeper than a knife. The next morning, she showed up at my door with her husband. Her face was pale, eyes swollen from crying. She begged me to open the door. Her husband, though, stood stiff, pride written all over his face, like he was too good to even step into my home. I let them wait. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Finally, I opened the door. Not wide, just a crack. "Dad," she said, her voice breaking. "They're taking the house. Please, please fix it. I have nowhere to go." I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her where that love was when she yelled at me like I was a burden. But instead, I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You told me to go away." So I went. "Now it's your turn." And I shut the door. Her sobs echoed in my ears long after she left. My hand shook. My heart. Oh, my heart ached like never before. Because as much as I tried to be strong, inside I was a father who still loved his child. But love and betrayal, they don't mix well. They eat at you like fire and gasoline. Days turned into weeks. I heard whispers around town, my daughter and her husband moving into a tiny rented apartment, struggling to pay bills, their social circle turning cold. People who once smiled at them now avoided them. Karma was serving its dish, cold and slow. But here's where the twist begins. Just when I thought life had given me my justice, something unexpected happened. Late one evening, I received a call, not from my daughter, but from her husband. His voice wasn't arrogant anymore. It was broken. He said, "Sir, please, my wife needs you. She's sick." My heart froze. Sick? What kind of sickness? I didn't know. But in that moment, every ounce of revenge, every drop of anger, clashed with the father inside me. Should I forgive? Should I show up? Or should I let them feel the weight of the choices they made? And that, my friends, was the crossroad. The night where love, betrayal, and karma all collided in one question. Do I answer the call or let silence finish the lesson? Asterisk. At 67, I thought I had seen it all. But when my own daughter looked me dead in the eyes and shouted, "Go away, or I'll call the police," I felt my heart shatter. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. Instead, I smiled, picked up my phone, and called the bank manager, to cancel her home mortgage. A week later, I woke up to 41 missed calls. What would you do if your own child betrayed you? Would you forgive, or would you fight back? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and share from which city are you listening me. So let's start. I still remember that day like it just happened yesterday. My daughter, my own flesh and blood, stood in front of me with fire in her eyes and shouted, "Go away or I'll call the police." I froze. My heart dropped. I was her father, the man who worked my entire life to give her everything. And in a split second, she threw me out like I was a stranger off the street. Now, pause for a second. Let me ask you something. If your own child, the one you raised, the one you sacrificed your best years for, told you to get out and threatened to call the cops, what would you do? Would you fight back? Would you walk away silently? Or would you do what I did? Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our family here on this channel. Because every story I share carries not just pain and betrayal, but lessons that can change lives. And trust me, this one will stay with you long after it ends. So let me take you back. I was 67 years old at the time, freshly retired, living what I thought would be the golden years of my life. I had worked for decades, sweat, blood, sleepless nights, and all those small sacrifices parents make that children never fully understand. I built a house that wasn't just bricks and walls. It was a dream, a place where I imagined family dinners, grandkids running around, birthdays celebrated with laughter echoing through the rooms. But life, as I learned that year, doesn't always play out the way we picture it. My daughter had grown distant after her marriage. The phone calls got shorter, the visits became rare, and every time I asked how she was, her answers felt like I was talking to a stranger, not the little girl I once carried on my shoulders through the park. Still, I trusted her. After all, what's a father without trust in his children? But little did I know, behind that distance was something brewing, something that would test me like never before. One cold evening, I walked in her home. She was sitting on a couch, scrolling through her phone, her husband standing nearby with a look I'll never forget. Cold, dismissive. I asked her gently, "Why don't you come by more often? Don't you miss home?" That's when it happened. She snapped. She raised her voice, her hands trembling, and she shouted those words that cut through me like a knife. "Go away, or I'll call the police." Do you know what betrayal feels like? It's not just pain. It's like the ground under your feet has vanished, like someone ripped the very foundation of your life out from under you. And yet, I smiled. I didn't fight back. I didn't argue. Instead, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and called the bank manager. With one calm breath, I said, "Cancel the home mortgage." That house, yes, the very roof over her head, was in my name. She didn't know that. And in that moment, my silence was louder than her scream. But that was just the beginning. Because 1 week later, I woke up in the morning to find 41 missed calls from her. And that, my friends, was when life taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Asterisk.